From Northern Avenue in Yerevan, this is ＳիվիլNeթ's Daily News Digest. I'm Maria Titizian, and here are the top stories for Thursday, March 13. Armenia welcomes Switzerland's decision to appeal the ECHR ruling. Also, legislators debate and ratify controversial new bills. Plus, the embattled Nairit Chemical Plant woes continue. And later find out which monastery has been shortlisted as one of the 7 most endangered in the world. Armenia welcomes Switzerland's decision to appeal the European Court of Human Rights ruling on Armenian genocide denial. In a statement, the spokesman of the Armenian Foreign Ministry, Dikran Balayan, said, "We welcome the decision of Switzerland to request the referral of Dogu Perincek to the Grand Chamber of the ECHR." He added, "Consistency in the fight against the denial of the crime of genocide has an important role in the prevention of new crimes against humanity." Switzerland's Federal Office of Justice announced on Tuesday that it will appeal the December 17, 2013 decision by the ECHR overturning the conviction of Perincek for denying the Armenian genocide while on a lecture tour in Switzerland in 2005. The Swiss are asking the ECHR Grand Chamber to review the ruling to clarify the scope available to Swiss authorities in applying the Swiss Criminal Code to combat racism. Switzerland created this penal provision, which entered into force in 1995, to close loopholes in its criminal law and enable the country to accede to the UN Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. Representatives of the International Committee of the Red Cross in Baku have been able to visit Armenians being held in Azerbaijani captivity. The ICRC saw 22-year-old Arsen Khojoyan for the first time since he was taken by Azerbaijani forces after he inadvertently crossed into Azerbaijani territory from his village in Verengar last week. ICRC reps also met with Armenian serviceman Hagop Injugulyan, who was taken captive on August 8, 2013. Letters from their families were passed on to the 2 young men. Yesterday, legislators debated and voted on a number of bills in the National Assembly. One such bill envisions the creation of a new and powerful law enforcement agency that would merge investigative arms of the Ministry of Defense and the police. There were plans to incorporate other agencies into that body as well, including the National Security Service, the Special Investigative Service, and the State Revenue Committee. However, according to Republican Member of Parliament Tavit Harutyunyan, who chairs the Parliamentary Committee on Legal Affairs, authorities have decided to wait up to 3 years to see whether the new body should be expanded and granted more powers. Opposition MP Nikol Pashinyan accused the government of pursuing personal goals with this bill. Pashinyan alleged that the new body is being created to secure a position for former Prosecutor General Arvan Hovsepian, who headed the ad hoc commission drafting the law. Representatives of the pro-government majority brushed aside such claims, but did not deny that Hovsepian could be viewed as a strong candidate for the position. There is speculation, however, that this new body was modeled after Russia's investigative committee, and this move is part of plans to ease Armenia's accession to the Russian-led customs union. Also in Parliament yesterday, a bill was ratified on changes to the law on advertisements. The legislative initiative was introduced by a group of Republican members and independent MP Edmond Marukyan that proposed lifting the ban on advertisements for alcoholic beverages on the airwaves. The new measure was severely criticized by opposition factions. The authors of the bill estimate that allowing alcohol companies to advertise will bring in revenues for television stations that would total about $2.4 million annually, helping to improve their financial condition. Arvan Vartanyan of the ARF faction in the National Assembly said that the new law is detrimental to the public's interest and will serve the interests for a select few TV channels. In the meantime, another bill was submitted that proposes banning commercials on the country's public television station, hղման. Armenia's government will allocate 50 million dirhams, or about $120,000 from the state budget to translate documents needed for membership in the Russian-led customs union. The Translation Center of the Ministry of Justice provides translations in only Armenian and English. However, as part of the accession to the customs union from October to December 2013, the center translated more than 2,000 pages of documents from Russian to Armenian. The government session today will propose to make amendments to the statutes of the Translation Center, which is a state non-commercial organization within the Justice Ministry, to allow them to do translations to Russian as well. Russia's Supreme Court of Arbitration upheld an appeal filed by Interstate Bank to confiscate $25 million from Armenia's Nairit Chemical Plant on March 11, 2014. According to the Russian news website rapsinnews.ru, Nairit Chemical Plant was the guarantor of a $70 million loan issued to Rhinoville Property Limited, which is Nairit's primary shareholder, with a 90% stake in the company. The loan was issued by Interstate Bank. The Russian court declared that Nairit Chemical Plant, the defendant, is obligated to pay $16,763,000 in interest incurred and just over $8 million in penalty fees to Interstate Bank. Representatives of the defendant, Nairit Chemical Plant, were absent during the trial. Interstate Bank's representatives claimed Nairit Chemical Plant stopped loan payments in January 2010. As Nairit's biggest shareholder, Rhinoville Property Limited, had an obligation to repay the $70 million loan within a period of 5.3 years, with the last payment being owed on December 27, 2011. Turkish riot police fired water cannons and tear gas to disperse demonstrators near Taksim Square in Istanbul. The protest was precipitated following the funeral of a teenage boy who was wounded last year during anti-government clashes. Berkan Elvan, aged 15, was in a coma for 9 months after being hit by a tear gas canister on his way to buy bread. Tens of thousands of mourners attended his funeral and chanted anti-government slogans as the boy's coffin was carried through the streets of Istanbul. Elvan's death spurred protests in about 32 towns and cities across Turkey. The denial of Armenian existence in Turkey continues unabated. The well-known Anadolu news agency filed a report about the ancient Armenian capital Ani, known as the city of 1001 churches. In the report, there is not a single mention of Armenian existence, and according to Anadolu News, the most important cultural monuments on the grounds of the devastated city are the mosques. The agency says that the first settlers in Ani beginning in 5000 BC were the Saka Turks. They mention numerous empires and rulers who had conquered Ani: the Sasanians, the Pakradids, Shaddadians, Georgians, Mongols, Ottomans, and Russians, but again, no mention of an Armenian heritage or legacy. The Turkish-Armenian weekly Agos ran an article entitled "Anadolu Agency Erased the Armenians from History" and called this latest attempt of the Turkish policy of denial shameful. On the actual grounds of Ani, there is not a single mention of Armenians or Armenia on any of the signs that have been placed to provide tourists a historical overview of the site. The monastery of Partsragash St. Gregory in Dseq, Armenia, is among the 11 monuments and sites shortlisted for the 7 Most Endangered 2014 program of the European Heritage Organization Europa Nostra and the European Investment Bank. The monastic complex dedicated to St. Gregory dates from the 10th to 13th centuries. Situated in the cultural landscape of the village of Dseq, the birthplace of Hovhannes Tumanyan, deep in a gorge, the stone structures of the main buildings lie in ruins without roofs and encroached on by vegetation. The rehabilitation of the monument would help establish Dseq as a center for tourism and boost the local economy. However, its rehabilitation requires international expertise and support. Armenia's Ministry of Culture nominated the monument for the 7 Most Endangered list. Cultural monuments that will be on the final 7 Most Endangered for 2014 will be unveiled at a press conference on May 5 at the House of Europe in Vienna by high-level representatives from Europa Nostra and the European Investment Bank Institute. The exchange rate is up on your screen as we take a look at your forecast. It's going to be a rainy day in Yerevan with a high of 12 and a low of -1. Gyumri will have a high of 5 and a low of -6. In Stepanakert, the capital of Artsakh, it will be partly cloudy with a high of 10 and a low of 2. And our travel forecast takes us to the romantic city of Venice, Italy, where the high will be 17 and the low 6. Although Armenians have lived in Italy for millennia, the Armenian community in Venice is particularly extraordinary and unique. From the 12th to 13th centuries, Armenian communities began forming in Genoa, Venice, and Pisa as a result of trade between Italy and the Armenian kingdom of Cilicia. In the 13th century, King Levon II of Cilicia signed a treaty in which Italians and Armenians were permitted to open factories and develop industries in both lands. After the Tartar and Mongol invasions of the kingdom, the Armenian community in Italy grew. In the 15th to 16th centuries, Armenians began converting to Italy's primary religion, Catholicism. Although some Armenians assimilated into mainstream Italian culture, many maintained their identity and culture. In the 18th century, Armenian Catholics were gifted an island, now known as St. Lazarus of the Armenians Island, which formed part of the unique Armenian Mekhitarist order of Catholicism. Since that period, the island has remained one of the most significant centers of Armenian culture. The island also served as one of the first printing centers of books written in the Armenian language. The Mekhitarist branch of Catholicism is named after Mekhitar of Sepastia, who fled to Italy with 12 Armenian Catholic monks to escape Ottoman persecution. The monastery located on the island was completed in 1740 AD and remains a vital cultural site for Armenians because of the rich historical artifacts contained there and the 150,000 volume library. The library also includes over 4,000 Armenian illuminated manuscripts in addition to other ancient artifacts. Lord Byron, a leading figure in English Romantic literature, studied Armenian at the island, consequently becoming a champion for Armenian causes. And that is our digest for this Thursday, March 12th. We leave you today with Alan Hovanes's Prayer of St. Gregory, performed by Trillium Bass Trio. Enjoy, and I'll see you back here tomorrow.